When it comes to these little trinkets we wear on our wrist, some things are not always what they appear. A Pagani design may look like one, but it does not cost the same as a Rolex. Just a Seiko can cost more than said Rolex. And if you asked Arnie about this watch after looking at that dial, he might say,
"It's not a Tuna."
Welcome to Addicted to Watches. Today, we'll be looking at the result of another Seiko collaboration. This time, it's Lowercase, and the result is a watch that has the case and rugged good looks of a baby tuna, with a dial you might not expect on a diver. This is the Seiko STBR037. Is it just me, or does Seiko seem to hold on to their more interesting designs for collaborations and limited editions? If you look at some of their other collaboration watches with Lowercase, Nano Universe, Tic Tac and many others, they are often very attractive and, as a byproduct, very popular watches. I think if Seiko had released this watch as part of their regular lineup, it would have been very successful. But, as it is, only a limited number were made, and it originally had a retail price of 40,000 Japanese yen. At current exchange rates, that is about 250 USD or 375 Australian dollars. At that price, it is maybe a little high for what you got, but that's usually the case when it comes to Seiko limited editions and collaborations. What you're paying for is the design. Not that that really matters now, because these sold out a very long time ago, and you'll have to really hunt for one on the second-hand market. Now, this watch has a dial that would look more suited to a field or everyday watch rather than a dive watch. But Seiko and or Lowercase decided to put it into a diver, specifically one of the baby tuna models. It gets that name, of course, from the shape of the case and shroud, resembling a tuna can, but this is the baby version. When we look at the measurements, you might not think it should have baby in the name, but on wrist you might just be surprised. Since that dial is the main event, let's take a closer look. The first thing you'll notice is of course the big, bold indices at 3, 6 and 9. I don't think I need to tell you which watch the designers were channeling with this one. It is well executed though, and the introduction of that diver's bezel adds a twist to the usual story. At 12 we have a triangle, and everywhere else simple rectangles. At 4 a date has been integrated reasonably well by cutting that marker short. Thankfully we have a color match date wheel to display it. All of those indices, which may look applied, are actually printed, and that metallic frame around them is also printed on. In fact, everything on the dial is printed. The Seiko logo above the pinion, as well as the Prospex X, Solar, and Divers 200 meters below. The watch probably didn't need all that printing down the bottom, but it does sum up the watch very well. The hands on the watch are similar but different to the classic SKX handset. They are roughly the same shape, but slightly thinner and more subtle. The arrowhead of the minute hand doesn't flare out as much, and the hour hand is straight rather than tapering. These feature brushed surrounds, whereas the second hand has been painted black and white. The hands as well as the markers on the dial have all been filled with lume. Normally, when a Seiko, especially one of their divers, has lume, you can safely assume it will be very good. This one is a bit different. The lume is still decent, but not quite up to the usual standard, because it is this creamy beige colour, imitating aged lume. It gives the watch a bit of character, and isn't overdone in my opinion. As we'll see later, it also means the watch works well on a matching strap. Just outside of all of this is the angled chaptering, which lets us get a proper read of the time. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Each minute is marked, and every 5 has a larger mark. Covering all of that is the crystal. Knowing Seiko, it is of course Hardlex rather than sapphire, but it's a pretty good one. It sits more or less flush with the bezel, but is domed ever so slightly. It's very subtle, and probably my favourite shape for a crystal. Turning the watch to a more extreme angle, there is quite a bit of distortion, so this crystal is only single domed. The top surface is curved, but the bottom is flat. It's about time we addressed the elephant in the room, or the tuna in the room, I guess. It's called the baby tuna, but how baby is it exactly? If you look purely at the case diameter, it's more of a screaming toddler than a baby, in that you won't forget it's there in a hurry. At 42.4mm, it sounds pretty substantial, and it is, but there is another very key measurement that changes everything. Lug to lug is a seemingly impossible 43.1mm. Because these lugs barely extend out from the case at all, the watch wears incredibly compact and comfortable. Thickness is also kept in check even with the domed crystal, thanks to the movement at 11.7mm, and lug width is thankfully a standard 20mm. A key part of any dive watch is the bezel, and this one is an interesting one. It has your usual loom pip at 12, though here there is no triangle or marker surrounding it. It's fully graded with these dots on every minute going all the way around, and at each 15 minutes we have Arabic numerals. It really mimics the dial in the layout with numerals just on those 3 points. The action of the bezel is what you'd expect from Seiko. It uses a click spring and feels a bit spongy with those 120 clicks. Part of what makes this watch a tuna is that shroud, that black piece covering most of the case, and only really allowing the lugs and crown to stick out. Those short lugs are polished, but the shroud has this matte black finish, which looks really good. It is shaped in such a way to protect the bezel from accidentally getting turned when diving, and really only lets you grip it from 2 places. This is a Prospex diver, don't forget. It's held to the watch by these 3 screws at the 3, 8 and 10 o'clock. The crown on the watch is quite large and sticks out quite far. I like it though. It makes it feel very purposeful and intentional. It is unfortunately unsigned, but offers plenty of grip to unscrew and turn. Not that you'll need to use it very often, since this watch uses a solar quartz movement. The only thing you'll really be doing is adjusting the date every other month. We can't see the movement of course, and instead on the case back is the wave that Seiko likes to put on the back of all their dive watches. This one is fully polished and screws down. From looking at the dial, we already know it gives the watch 200 meters of water resistance, and a few other specs are etched around the case back here. Finally, we have the strap. It's Seiko's basic silicone dive watch strap, and this one is fairly old and worn. So much so that it's gotten to the point where it's kind of degrading and turning sticky and oily. As you can probably guess, I haven't been wearing it on this one. Instead, I've had it mostly on this Tropic rubber strap that is very soft and comfortable. It's just a cheap one from AliExpress, but it looks the part and is supremely flexible. This watch looks good on some other straps too though, so let's check it out. On wrist, I think you can see what I meant about it not feeling like a 42mm watch. In terms of how it feels, I'd say it wears much closer to something like a 38mm watch. So, even you smaller wristed folks can pull this one off easily. The black strap matches the shroud nicely, and turning my wrist we get a bit of distortion on the crystal, and a look at how thin it is from the side here. So, that strap matches the shroud, but this NATO strap matches the loom, and I think it looks great on this watch. It creates a very casual look, and is even lighter and more comfortable than the Tropic strap. I did try both silver and black steel mesh straps on the watch, but didn't feel that either of them worked so well, so I've been switching between these two. In case it wasn't already abundantly clear, I really like this watch. Do I have complaints about it? Well, the loom could be better, but if I had to choose between good loom and that creamy patina, I think I'd choose to keep it as is. I can't really have my cake and eat it too in this instance. I'm fine with the solar quartz movement, as it keeps the watch practical as a grab and go when I feel like wearing something fun, and that second hand does a pretty good job of hitting all the markers as it makes its way around the dial. I could also mention the original strap, which isn't in the best condition, but I can't say for sure if that's because the strap itself isn't of particularly good quality, or if it's because of how the previous owner used and stored it. Those are all pretty minor and immaterial though. What I will complain about is just the fact that the availability of this watch and this design is so limited. Sure, it's a bit different to what Seiko usually does with their divers, but that's exactly the point. It would be pretty unique in their lineup in terms of design, and as a result, I think would be pretty popular. As it is, tracking down one of these can be a challenge, so I feel pretty lucky I came across one. If you can find one for a decent price, it has a lot of things going for it, and not much against it. What do you think about this watch? Had you come across this or other collaborations from Seiko before? Would you buy one if it was readily available? Are you suddenly hungry for some fresh sushi as well? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.